You mentioned tools that you're currently been using. What kind of tools are there? I'm curious. I would love to learn from you.
Meditation is a big one.
Ah,
Yeah, so that's something I've incorporated probably a few years ago. It's been
mm,
good for me. I know it can be difficult for a lot of people. And I found it quite difficult until I've found upon a particular method that works for me, and it still works. I do it twice a day, and that allows me to just put the brakes on that survival mode to an extent and become a little bit more present. So that's something I do twice a day religiously. And then other reading, basically, and exploration. So I just read a lot, and try to understand other people's perspectives, because this what we're talking about now isn't a new concept. It's
nothing's new.
centuries that people have been trying to perhaps get to the bottom of what we're talking about. So just trying to understand different perspectives on how other people gain, what we're trying to, perhaps what we're talking about is enlightenment, I'd say. So how have
Nirvana.
others tried to get, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah. How do we get there?
And with this, with this meditation, is it simply going, okay, it's 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to go into an office, a spare office in WeWork, for example. I'm going to lock the door. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to turn off notifications. Do not disturb. And do you listen to your breath? Do you focus on something? How do you do it? I'm curious because I've always tried it, right?
Yeah,
And I'll share what my meditation is, but I'll be
please.
curious to
Yeah.
see how you approach it.
I started off with breath, and observation. So I think, there's some modern really popular apps which are really great at that. Didn't really work for me in a way that I was hoping to. So I studied transcendental meditation,
Mm.
did a course, and that was pretty mind blowing. I would say it was like no meditation I'd ever done
Wow.
before. The reason, and the exact mechanics, but I believe the result of it is that you tire your mind to an extent in which the survival mind switches off and you become completely present. So the research which they've done, I think it's actually used in healthcare in Canada, I believe, but the research they've
Mm.
done is that it can be as restful as 3 times deep sleep once you're in that state. So it enables you to be completely shut off and be completely relaxed for that period of time. So I do that for 20 minutes twice a
So how,
day.
how, how do you get into it? But like one of the challenges I found with meditation, right, is like for me now, I'll tell you a technique that I use, right? But
Mm.
how do you get into that? But like you made a very good point about putting yourself in a state where you turn off the survival mode, right? But but can you really go, you know what, it's 11 o'clock, turn it off, give me that 20 minutes and you do it or
I have to time it at a certain point. So if I know I've got a lot of things that I need to follow up on, and I can tell inside me I need to go do that, I wouldn't be able to invest in it as well as I'd like to. So I do it as soon as I wake up in the morning before I've
mm,
touched my phone, looked at any emails. So I do it then, and then I do it just after lunch, where I give
nice.
myself a 30-minute slot. So if you time it well enough so that you're not engaged in an activity that you have to come away from, I find that I can get a little bit deeper, and the actual practice in itself perhaps accommodates for that. So it's essentially a word or mantra that you say over and over until your brain becomes so tired, I suppose simplistically, that it stops, not stops thinking, but that part of the brain at least rests for some time. And
And it's
yeah,
and it's and it's been very effective for you, yeah?
I've found so, yeah, it's something that
Brilliant.
I've done every day for the past 3 years. So
Wow.
um
That's
it,
that's discipline.
it well, perhaps not. I think if it was difficult, but I wasn't getting anything back from it, I perhaps wouldn't have been able to keep it up. But I think such is testament to the improvements I've had. If I don't do it now during the day, I can tell I'll be really tense. I'll start to feel a little bit of a headache creeping in.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I can physically feel it in my shoulders if I haven't done it on that day.
And would you say that it helps you combat, for example, a difficult customer or a difficult candidate? It helps you bring you back in a way, or?
I don't know if I use it as point and shoot as that. I'd perhaps use a breathing technique for someone that which is a little bit more available and ready. So I might do a deep breath exhalation. So two short deep breaths in and then a long deep hail exhalation. I might use that a bit more readiness, but same as anybody, you can easily be knocked off being in a state of zen by an external thing. So I certainly don't profess to be able to keep zen throughout the day, but
Oh,
I
I
do
don't think anyone can.
not in the corporate world for sure. But I do try to give myself at least those 2 blocks to give it a good go. But tell me about your meditation.
I think I read a lot, right? You mentioned it yourself, you do a lot of reading. And I found something as simple as, have you watched the movie Kung Fu Panda?
No.
So obviously, naturally, one of the main characters is a panda, right? Now, do watch out. When you have a bit of time, you mentioned young family, or you yourself when you get a bit of downtime. Watch Kung Fu Panda, right? And essentially, the old grand Kung Fu master goes to the panda one day. He goes, "Tomorrow is a mystery. Yesterday is history. Today is a gift. That's why we call it the present."
It's good.
It's good, eh?
It's poignant for a Disney
turtle
movie, isn't it?
It is,
Yeah,
eh?
that's
And
right.
I suppose I've been doing this for such a long time, right? That, and like what you said, right? You couldn't be doing your meditation for 3 years, twice a day, if you didn't think it was working, right? Now, for me right now, I force myself to live into the present. And is it a tool or is it a mindset? And it's very much a mindset thing, Joe, about I really try to plant myself in the current day. Like what you said, right? Given the environment that we're in, and whether you're in corporate or whether you run your own business or whatever, right? There's always something that goes wrong, right? So over the years, I just trained a mind, you could say, to just force myself to go, you know what? Actually, in the past, I would get a lot of grief and I would get a lot of pain always thinking about what's next. Now, you mentioned earlier in our conversation about how when you're in that growth mindset, it's hard to turn off. And I realized when I just kept doing that, right, I was always delaying the enjoyment of the day.
Gratification.
And I paid the price for it, right? And what's the greatest lesson? The greatest lesson is that you need to do it yourself, get burnt before you realize that. So thankfully, that happened to me many times. And that prompted me to go, you know what? You really got to plonk yourself in the present day. Whatever happened 2 minutes ago is whatever happened 2 minutes ago. It's gone. It's just here to focus now. So it's very much this conversation between you and I. I'm here for you. You're my focus. And that's what I've been doing. And you probably, and I'm not too sure, you probably heard my son and daughter crying in the background. It is school holidays. Yeah, so I think it's very much a mindset thing. Yeah.
It's interesting to talk about how do you get there, because the beauty of the journey that people find themselves in, which is conventional material drive to the self-help industry really promotes this as to, if I can only just get here, then I'll be happy. And that really works. It really works if you don't achieve it, and it continues and continues, and people spend their lives. But my appreciation is, when you do get there, you realize that nothing changes. So I think to have that, I won't say enlightenment, so I'm nowhere near that, but to have that, to either think ahead and realize that you won't achieve enlightenment or happiness by reaching a certain personal goal. Do you get there by getting to that goal and realizing, or do you perceive that ahead of time? And it sounds like you know, either you've got there and realized it didn't bring you anything else, or you perceived it already. What would you say?
Yeah. You know what's interesting about we talk about podcasts, we talk about, you know, can you control everything, right? Now here's a perfect example of me trying to control the situation. This is my son, by the way. He has made his first appearance on the show, but you know what? I'm just going to let it be.
No.
But you're right, and something like this is a good example of how you can plan anything, right? You can make it perfect, you know, and that brought me a lot of grief of trying to control the situation. But then I realized I'll just let it be.
The other part of it is to it goes back to your question about finding meaning, and when you say let it be and, you know, take out the uncontrollables, how you get there, it's either spiritual or through another way. I'm atheist by, you know, by choice, and I would say I'm more of a, I suppose I need some kind of proof to believe in things, which is perhaps a detriment as well, a downfall. But I've managed to get there through the panda analogy you made. I've managed to get there through more of a scientific approach, which was basically what you said, which was, have you ever experienced a future that was more than a thought happening right now? No. Have you ever experienced a past other than it being a thought right now? And that has allowed me to get a little bit towards where you are in terms of not thinking about the past and the present, past and the future, and being completely present. But it's such a, sounds like you've got it, you know, on tap, but it is so hard. I think it's something that you constantly have to keep checking back in to the present.
It's like what we talked about, you know, could you go for a day where you can not blow up, you know, you're so calm. It's very difficult to be in that sort of state. You know, sometimes, a lot of the times when I do these conversations, I don't mean for them to go sort of quite deep and philosophical. It's just that when I bring people onto the conversation, it naturally lends itself. But maybe it's also me curious to see how other people sort of do it. You mentioned you're an atheist, John Joe. I don't think it's a negative way. It's just how you sort of see things, right? So have you seen that proof, so to speak, you mentioned about seeing in a certain way, or?
I think what I meant by that is that my approach to learning and understanding is I try to find concrete evidence, which can be not accessible if you're trying to, you know, reach things that are a little bit of a deeper level, whether it be spiritual or other. But that's how I've been able to find a little bit more access to being present by thinking about it from a scientific level, as to the future doesn't exist, the past doesn't exist as a concept. That's allowed me
it's very rational, isn't it?
Irrational, that's perhaps what I'm getting at. Yeah. That rational approach has perhaps allowed me to get there a little bit, but I've also got a foot in reading a lot about Buddhism and the spiritual aspect of finding it that way. So I think there are various paths that people take, but everybody's trying to get to the same place ultimately.